Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona with producer Bobby helping us out. Remember, we'd always love to hear from you. So anytime we're previewing a race, make sure to subscribe and then drop a comment in and let us know who you like in these particular races. David, when the calendar flips and we're in January, we start thinking about Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks. And while this race we're going to preview, the San Vicente, does not have Kentucky Derby points, it is a race that is used a lot of times as a stepping stone to future Kentucky Derby points races. So we just have a small field here. It's not the biggest field in the world, but it's generally the case when you have these 2- and 3-year-old races in Southern California. Bob Baffert will have a pretty big say in this race, although I do think there are a couple other logical contenders in here from Doug O'Neill and from Mark Glatt. So not the biggest field in the world here.
Yeah, Bob Baffert has certainly a strong hand in both of the stakes races on Saturday. We're not going to do a preview of the race for the 3-year-old fillies going the same 7-furlong distance. That was rescheduled from last week, but I think he's got the top 3 finishers from last year's Del Mar debutante back in that race. So Baffert's going to have a pretty strong chance to win both of these races, and he's going to have the horse that will likely go off as the heavy favorite here. That's the number 3 Butane, who was last seen finishing second to the likely champion, Ted Noffey.
Curious what ends up happening early in this race as far as the pace is concerned, because Acknowledgemeplz is quick. He's going to be cutting back. He didn't get the lead last time out, but they'll add the blinkers, and I'd expect they want to try to get him on the lead because it worked so well for him in his first 2 starts. You do have Greenwich Village from the inside who is stretching out a little bit. I think he'll probably try to hold his position. Maybe those are the 2 quickest in here, and that's kind of what the projector has up there for us.
Yeah, I feel like if they want the lead with the number 4, Acknowledgemeplz, they can certainly get it. And when you watch the replay of the last race, as you said, he wasn't on the lead. They chose not to secure the lead that day because he broke in front and they just kind of took him off the pace. And then things happened after that we'll get into in a little bit. But I feel like if this horse breaks well and they want to go forward with him, he will be naturally fastest. And you kind of know what the MO is going to be with the 2 Baffert horses. If they break well, it's not like they're going to tangle on the front end. But probably one of them is going to go forward, one of them is going to stalk, and we'll see how that plays out.
Let's meet the field here. This is the Grade 2 San Vicente. It's going to go as race number 5 on Saturday, January the 10th over at Santa Anita. 7 furlongs, the distance here. $200,000 up for grabs. We start with Greenwich Village, who was a debut winner on December the 6th over at Los Alamitos. It was a fine effort. Was inside, was just behind the leaders, made an early move in between horses up to challenge at the top of the lane. Drifted out a little bit, but it was still traveling pretty well that day. The Dam was a multiple graded stakes winner sprinting on the turf. I feel like there'll be some inside speed with this guy.
Yeah, this horse didn't look like the kind of Baffert horse that was super cranked up for a top effort on debut. When you watch some of the workouts before the first race, he wasn't really tipping his hand that he was something special. I think maybe that's why they debuted him at Los Al, where Bob Baffert typically doesn't debut his top horses. But as you said, I mean, I like the way this horse ran, not the quickest away, but he really pulled forward on the backstretch, and he got a good challenge from the inside, top of the stretch here, and I like the way he finishes off this race. And Gino, what I really like are some of his workouts since this race. Back on December 29th, he paired up with Cherokee Nation, a horse that Bob Baffert, I believe, sent over to Churchill Downs for the Kentucky Jockey Club, and he clearly outworked that horse. To me, interestingly, not wearing blinkers in that workout. They are apparently going to stick with the blinkers in this race, but breaking from the inside, he's the one that I would imagine they'd be looking to get a little more forward position with, and I don't mind him stretching out to the 7 furlongs based on what I saw on debut.
Didn't that work? And what's nice is First.tv is a really good resource. If you're watching races from Southern California, from Gulfstream Park in particular, you'll get a lot of the workouts for these horses. And what I like too is they actually had the horse kind of working with a target from off the pace a little bit too. So it doesn't seem like he's just a horse that they want as like a runoff speed type. I think he does have some ability, and you could see some real progression in the mornings as well. I totally agree with you on that. As we move to the number 2, So Happy, his debut race was pretty good. He was close up. He was a little bit wide out and about the 5 path or so. He backed up and then he made this big wide move at the top of the lane, and he just kept going, and the race has come back pretty live. David, the 4th place finisher, came back to win a maiden special weight race next out with an 88 Beyer speed figure, so could have been a pretty strong race that So Happy was the winner of.
Yeah, we could take a look at the stretch run for So Happy. And I thought he maybe benefited a little bit from his outside position because this was sort of an outside flow dominated race. Even the runner up, I think, was the number 10 on this day, just kind of stayed outside toward the center of the course for most of the race. And there were some others in behind that maybe had a little bit of trouble. There was a heavy favorite in here, Blacksmith, for Bob Baffert, who eventually did finish second in the Los Alamitos Futurity. But that was a horse that just seemed to resent the kickback on this day. So I think So Happy benefited a little bit from some others maybe not producing their best effort on this day, but still, he ran an 83 by-run debut for a trainer that doesn't always have them cranked up to win first time out. So with any progression second time out, this is a horse that could have a real say in the outcome.
Up next is Butane, who was a debut winner at Del Mar in August. And coming off of that debut win, he was actually favored in the Grade 1 hopeful over Ted Noffey, who went on to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and is no doubt the #1 horse in this current division of newly turned 3-year-olds. And honestly, it really wasn't a bad effort from Butane, who was in striking range, and he kind of loomed up with Noffey, but he just couldn't go on with Ted Noffey. He was just no match for the top horse in the division right there. I mean, you look back at some of the other horses too that he's faced and some of the recent works. I think some positivity. He crushed a horse named Desert Gate last time out when working in the morning, and that horse probably would have been the 3rd choice in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile had he not scratched. Yep. He was a pretty highly regarded horse earlier on in the year. So, I mean, he seems solid. I think he's probably ready to rock for this. And I just don't think it's the easiest spot in the world, even for a small field, David. Like any of the 3 or 4 inside horses really wouldn't shock me because I think they're all sort of evenly matched. But this horse showed some serviceability in the first 2 starts.
Yeah, I mean, he probably is the horse to beat based on the natural progression that you would assume he would display from the summer of his 2-year-old season now to January of his 3-year-old season. But I'm still not totally convinced that this horse is some standout on paper. Gino, I mean, it's not like he's run that much faster, really any faster than anybody else in this field. Now, maybe he does improve. And you mentioned the recent workouts. The last one, as you said, the workout over the synthetic course at Santa Anita, that was impressive because he was much better than Desert Gate on that day. But let's keep in mind, this horse really has a turf pedigree. It's a lot of turf on the dam side. He's by Tis the Law. So maybe he really liked that synthetic course that he got to try in the morning. And I watched some of his dirt workouts prior to that. I was not nearly impressed by the dirt workouts as I was by that synth workout last time. So I'm not exactly sure what to make of him. And he is going to be a very short price for a horse that, at least for me, still has some questions to answer.
Yeah, it sounds like we have similar thoughts on him. I respect his ability. He wouldn't shock me, but I just think there are a couple other horses that are kind of evenly matched in here that should probably offer us some better value. I mean, right outside of Butane, he has to deal with Acknowledgemeplz, who was a nice debut runner-up behind the horse that I just mentioned, Desert Gate, in a strong maiden special weight race. Then he came back in his second start, and he won, and he beat that horse Blacksmith, who you were just talking about. Blacksmith, who actually ran pretty well that day, and then didn't come back and fire his next start, but Blacksmith came back and is graded stakes placed, and I think is a really talented horse who's just a little bit quirky, and they got to kind of figure out his mental state a bit. But Acknowledgemeplz put the blinkers on last time, David. He was quick, and as you pointed out, it just seemed like they didn't really want to go on with it to the front end and maybe try to sit off a little bit. That really didn't work all that well. Got hooked a little bit wide. He backed off. He sort of lugged out into the turn. I just feel like the blinkers will really help him. And honestly, that 93 Beyer speed figure he earned when he broke his maiden, that's the tops in the field.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what to make of the last race because, as you say, he was getting out. It was visible going into the clubhouse turn, and maybe that's why he was a little tentatively ridden coming out of the starting gate and into the first quarter mile, because maybe the jockey felt like he was about to get out because he had a chance to just secure the early lead that day and cross over towards the inside. They chose not to do that. They took him back despite the fact that he broke on top of the field, and it was just like he wasn't really ridden to win that race, and maybe they kind of already knew about that tendency to get out because I was watching some of his workouts even going back before the Los Al Futurity. And actually, in that November 29th drill, he was wearing an extension blinker that totally covered his right eye. And now they're putting blinkers on for this race. And I wonder if the blinker change will be to that extension blinker, which really works for some horses, doesn't work for other horses, sometimes causes gait issues. So I'll be interested to see how severe the blinker is that they're putting on this horse. That's a bit of a question mark for me. But as you point out, that 93 Beyer that he earned 2 back, that's tops in this field and makes him one of the horses to beat.
Riding at the field is Thirsty Rebel. He's a Calbred. He's the lone 2-time winner in the field. A bit light on speed figures, but the positive is he has shown us he can pass horses. Initially, I was wondering if he was kind of entered into this race as a filler because it's small field and you get the other Doug O'Neill horse to fill the race. And then you look at speed figures. It's not as if his most recent Beyer is completely overwhelmed by the others in this field. So he's not completely out of touch. I could make a much better case for, I think, the other 4 horses in here, David, than from Thirsty Rebel, who will likely try to just take back, maybe sit and maybe pick up some pieces.
I feel like it's a logical spot just to test the waters against Open Company. I think they've got a California bred day coming up in a week or two, but the major race, the Cal Cup Derby, that's around 2 turns. This horse doesn't want to go 2 turns, so why not try Open Company sprinting? He's going to have to run faster, Gino, but as you said, it's not like there's such a big gap between the 77 buyer that he ran and the top buyer of an 83 for the likely favorite Butane. So we'll see if he can improve. It is a step up for him, but he's not the craziest long shot to consider.
Just a small field, but I do think, David, that any of the 4 inside horses really wouldn't shock me. And as we were just talking about Thirsty Rebel, it's not like he's the craziest long shot that you've ever seen in your life in a small field, coming off of a big, impressive 6-length victory. So in a race that looks a little bit competitive, how'd you stack him up here? Who'd you end up with on top?
Well, I'm pretty familiar with the place Greenwich Village, having gone to college at NYU. Spent a lot of time in Greenwich Village back in my college days. Not as familiar with the horse because we've only seen him on the racetrack once, but I liked that first impression that we got at Los Alamitos. And I feel like he is one that can take a step forward. And Bob Baffert, when he's got a couple of horses in these small fields in Southern California, he tends to dominate these races, sometimes running 1-2. Hopefully I can get the bigger price on top.
Well, it's a place that it's a place that I'm hoping to go. So Happy. I'd love to get there. 2, 4, 3, 1. We will be if So Happy can sit the trip. David will go 1, 3, 4, 2 with Greenwich Village on top. We'd love to hear from you. Who do you like in the San Vicente? Drop a comment below.